Only this morning, these words of a Spanish Capuchin friars in the Philippines came to my mind. He said, once a friar has been ordained and sent on mission overseas, they were reminded of 3 words. In Spanish, it's called cappuccino, santo, misionario. That means to be a Capuchin is to be holy and a missionary. Holiness and mission. It touches on the very core of our Christian identity and mission, which our church refocus again. We Catholics have many devotions, and we need to see whether our practice of these various and different devotions, have they really helped us grow in holiness and mission? Have these practices helped us being purified in holiness for mission? In other words, have they helped us to grow in effective Christian living, in effective missionary discipleship? Our Catholic devotions to saints is sometimes misunderstood, and hence we have to be careful, because if wrongly understood and practiced or distorted or lack of balance, it can become a hindrance rather than help us in our Christian living. We have to be careful against turning the saints into mere objects of cult, of using them simply as means of obtaining favors. And I guess the majority of those who went to BM, Bukit Medajam, for St. Anne's feast or other pilgrimages every year do just that. Of course, saints can pray, can intercede, and win favor for us, but they should first serve as models for us in following Christ. Strictly speaking, today's feast of all saints is the feast of the canonized saints. So who are they? These canonized saints were simply special models of radical discipleship to Jesus, models of radical gospel living. When a person is canonized a saint, the church declares that this was an individual who exemplified extraordinary or heroic virtues in his or her life. That is incredible faith. We all have faith, but the saints, the faith is incredible, so strong. Unwavering hope. We have hope, we do hope. For them is unwavering hope, even in the midst of tremendous trials and tribulations. We have charity. For them is superabundant charity. So theirs is called the heroic virtues of faith, hope, and charity. And in terms of today's gospel text from Matthew chapter 5, for a person to be considered holy or canonized a saint, he or she must live the message of the Beatitudes in an intense and radical manner. And that is why the church tells us that these people are worthy of our veneration and imitation. Although they were as humans as the rest of us, they were truly poor in spirit. That is to say, they consistently trust in the Lord. They confidently sought their strength in God in the midst of all their sorrows. And they had true sorrows for their sins. They were sincerely and deeply humble. They desire holiness more than anything else in life. They seek first the kingdom of God. They show mercy towards everyone, even their enemies. They work tirelessly for justice and peace, and they gladly suffer persecution for the sake of Christ, for the sake of evangelization. So holy or saintly people are not simply the so-called nice people who do some nice things. They were much, much more than that. Why I say this? Because if you remember, many years ago, both Mother Teresa and Princess Diana died. Mother Teresa passed away a few days after Princess Diana. And people throughout the world and of all faiths recognize the sanctity of Mother Teresa. And for the Catholics, we know that she surely would be canonized, just as John Paul II. You may not remember, but I remember vividly, because I was in Rome when he died. At the St. Peter's Piazza, crowds were growing, and they were shouting, "Subito, subito, subito." Subito in Italian means immediately. They called for John Paul II to be canonized immediately. But then, there was a young girl, very naive, who asked whether Princess Diana would be canonized too. You see, sometimes people in the secular media have clouded our understanding, have diluted our understanding of sanctity. The media make it sound as if these two women led lives which were equally virtuous. It is not. To put it simply, one was a woman of great sanctity. The other was a woman of great celebrity. Yes, we do believe that Princess Diana did many wonderful things during her life. Just like the wife of many of our cabinet ministers or politicians, and that may include our Rosma. From all external indications, she had a great deal of compassion and love for those less fortunate than she was. But sanctity is more than philanthropy. It certainly includes philanthropy, but it goes beyond that. So when a person is considered holy and canonized a saint, the church declares that this was an individual who exemplified heroic virtues of faith, hope, and charity in his or her life in terms of today's gospel beatitude. Sanctity and celebrity are not the same. The world needs to understand that. There may be some who have great sanctity and also great celebrity like Mother Teresa and John Paul II. And we can include our current Pope Francis. All our Pope are also celebrated. If you remember years ago, about a year after his election, Pope Francis has been nominated as the most influential people on earth by Time magazine. It's a celebrity. But he is holy. They were both holy and famous. Many are famous, but not holy. But it is possible to have great celebrity and very little sanctity, or great sanctity and very little and no celebrity. In fact, today's Feast of All Saints also honors in a particular way people in this last category, men and women who quietly live lives of great holiness and are now in heaven, even though they have not been formally canonized by the church and their names are not in the calendar of the church. The hidden saints. Sisters and brothers, today, let us be challenged by the popes of John Paul II. At the turn of the century, he wrote a very great document about the pastoral priority, charting a vision for the church in the documents towards the third millennium. And he writes these words: the time has come to repropose wholeheartedly to everyone this high standard of ordinary Christian living. The whole life of the Christian community and of Christian families must lead in this direction. So to him, as Christians, it would be a contradiction to settle for a life of mediocrity, marked by a minimum of ethics, just good enough to enter heaven, good enough not to go to hell, and a shallow religiosity. So let there be a certain standard, a high standard in our daily Christian living. Speaking of standard, we know in today's, let's say even the requirements for entrance in the university, in college, all the standard have gone down. Many years ago, those of you who are what so-called, who are have a senior Cambridge, Cambridge, your experience and your knowledge is much more better perhaps than a university student, because our standards have gone down. I know friends also, I know he intellectual very weak. After some time studying the U, I don't know how she entered also. All our standards have gone down in many aspects of our life. So our Pope speak of our Christian standard, our morality, our ethics. There must be a standard. Only then can we be the salt of the earth and light of the world. It's easy to be Christians in name only. But when it comes to attitudes and behaviors, it is possible that we are not much different, nor better than the non-believers, if not worse. Our Christian living is not effective. Our missionary discipleship is not effective. We are not effective as the salt of the earth and the light of the world. No standard, but people see us no difference. So the letter to the Hebrews says, strive for that holiness without which no one can see the Lord. Matthew 5, it says, only the pure in heart can see God. So do I have to be a saint? Only if you want to end up in heaven. Because at the end, there is only one thing in life that matters, to be a saint. And God is glorified by our life of holiness.